Daria is remembered like a comfort character, the calm voice in the chaos, the one person in the room who could see through the performance and say the quiet part out loud. If you grew up with her, you probably remember the relief of finally watching someone who didn't beg to belong, someone who didn't pretend high school was meaningful just because everyone else was acting like it. Daria was right. That's why she became a symbol. But that's also why the show is more dangerous than we like to admit, because the scary part isn't that she was wrong, it's that she was right. And being right was the very thing that trapped her. Because the problem with being right is that you start using it as proof you don't need anymore. The easiest way to misunderstand Daria is to treat it like a comedy about a smart girl surrounded by idiots. The show encourages that reading at first. Lawndale is filled with inflated egos, corporate parents, shallow trends, and moral shortcuts. And Daria's deadpan is so precise it feels surgical. Her sarcasm lands cleanly. Her observations are accurate. Watching her dismantle nonsense feels like a relief. But Daria isn't a show about winning arguments. It's about what happens after you win them. It's about the loneliness that follows accuracy, about the quiet cost of never being surprised. Intelligence becomes insulation. Insulation becomes isolation. Daria didn't just give you a voice, it showed you what that voice turns into when it becomes your only form of protection. Right away, the setup tells you what kind of survival story this is. Daria doesn't arrive in Lawndale looking for a home, she arrives looking for cover. Not because she thinks she's better than everyone else, but because she's already learned what happens when you care too loudly in the wrong room. Lawndale isn't an evil place, that's what makes it hurt. It's normal. Normal places don't break you with cruelty, they break you with repetition, with shallow praise, with constant noise, with the expectation that you'll perform enthusiasm for things you don't believe in. Daria's distance isn't a personality quirk, it's a strategy. Watch how she moves through the school. She doesn't chase popularity. She doesn't fight for status. She watches. She positions herself like a witness in a courtroom where nobody realizes they're on trial. Teachers celebrate hollow productivity. Students repeat slogans like prayers. Trends cycle through with religious devotion. The environment runs on social gravity, the pressure to agree, to want the same things at the same time. Daria refuses. She becomes a combat-booted glitch in a world of scrunchies and forced enthusiasm. By not participating, she exposes the performance. That's why she feels so good to watch. She's the fantasy of opting out, the fantasy of being untouchable. But Daria isn't untouchable. She's just harder to reach. That difference matters. You see it most clearly in the creation of the misery chick. What starts as an accidental symbol becomes a brand. A caricature of Daria's detachment is packaged, sold, and celebrated. Cynicism becomes consumable. Distance becomes an aesthetic. Instead of dismantling the system, it slots neatly into it. The show quietly asks an uncomfortable question here. If your critique becomes a product, did it ever actually threaten anything? Daria sees the absurdity immediately, but she also sees the trap. Once your detachment becomes your identity, the world stops asking who you are underneath it. Jane is the one place that armor loosens, and even then, only slightly. They aren't sitcom best friends, they're allies. Two people who recognize the same lie and decide to sit next to each other instead of pretending it's true. With Jane, you see what Daria's distance is protecting. It isn't arrogance, it's sensitivity. Daria doesn't detach because she's cold. She detaches because she feels too much and doesn't trust the room to handle it. Sarcasm becomes a gate, a way of saying access isn't free. That strategy works. People don't bully Daria because she makes herself a dead end. You can't humiliate someone who refuses the game. She's protected by her clarity, not because the world becomes kinder, but because she becomes immovable. And that's where the cost begins to surface. Armor is heavy. The same distance that keeps you from being hurt also keeps you from being held. We see it in the moment where Daria could connect and doesn't. Not dramatically, quietly. A look held too long. A joke used instead of an admission. The protection works so well that it starts closing doors she never meant to lock. You can see it at home. Helen isn't a villain. She's a mother sprinting on adrenaline, trying to force stability into existence. Jake isn't a joke. He's a man who survived by being agreeable and easy to overlook. Their house is loud, chaotic, and emotionally messy, but it isn't empty. And yet Daria treats it like a temporary holding cell instead of a place she belongs. That detachment feels justified until you realize what it costs. Distance protects her from embarrassment, but it also starves her of intimacy. This pattern becomes impossible to ignore when being right stops being enough. Daria is right about popularity being hollow. She's right about school initiatives being performative, but being right doesn't change the scenery. It just changes where you stand. And where Daria stands is usually alone. That's the trade the show keeps circling. When you're the smartest person in the room, you start living like you're the only real one in it. Not because you're better, but because awareness becomes a burden you never get to set down. If you're always the one noticing what others won't, you're always awake in a room full of people half asleep. That's exhausting. So Daria turns awareness into identity. She becomes the one who isn't fooled. And once you wear that long enough, you forget who you be without it. The show tests this during moments where Daria wants something, a crush, a sense of being chosen, a connection that isn't filtered through irony. And you can feel her panic, not because love is dangerous, but because love requires vulnerability. And vulnerability is the one thing her entire personality was designed to avoid. This tension finally fractures in Les Miserables. Jane's creative world expands. Daria assumes their bond is immune to change. That assumption is her blind spot. She can dismantle institutions and trends without effort, but she misses the quiet truth that even the people who love you can get tired of being treated like they're indestructible. Jane doesn't leave because Daria is cruel. She drifts because Daria never learned how to step forward when it mattered. That moment reframes everything. Daria isn't about cynicism winning. It's about cynicism functioning. It's a tool that keeps you alive in a world that doesn't deserve your softness. But eventually, that tool becomes your only language. Even the people who care about you can only reach you through the same defenses you built to keep pain out. The show refuses to fix this cleanly. Daria doesn't become bubbly. She doesn't abandon her intelligence. Growth looks smaller and harder, letting someone see her for a second longer than she's comfortable with. Admitting she wants something without mocking herself for it. Taking one step toward people without immediately retreating back into the bunker of being right. Because being right is stable. It's clean. It protects you from disappointment. If you expect less, you hurt less. If you keep your hopes small, you won't have to watch them die. Daria's distance keeps her life manageable. It's emotional budgeting. It's control. But what if the price of safety is that you never actually arrive? That question lingers because Daria is a blueprint many of us accidentally adopted. We learned that detachment is dignity, that caring is embarrassing, that the fastest way to survive a room is to act like you don't need it. And sometimes that's true. But survival strategies have expiration dates. What saves you at 15 can starve you at 25. What protects you while you're trapped can keep you trapped once the door is open. Daria's intelligence is powerful, but it reveals the trade. The smarter you are, the easier it is to justify not trying. To call it clarity when it's fear. To call it truth when it's self-protection. Daria never fully escapes that trade. There is no clean win, only awareness. The recognition that being right can become a prison if it's the only identity you allow yourself to have. Daria was right isn't a victory statement. It's a warning label. If you're always right, you stop being surprised. You start treating the world like it's already decided. And then you live inside that decision, never risking the possibility that something better could happen. So yes, Daria was in fact right. The world is shallow. People perform. Institutions lie. Optimism is a brand. And being intelligent in a room that doesn't value it can feel like a suffocation. But being right is a lonely place to live. The question isn't whether the world is shallow. We already know it is. The question is, how long are you willing to stay outside just to prove you noticed?